again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Fiddling with Philosophy TV show. We have a great show in store for you guys today. We have some prominent members of the philosophy community humbling us with their presence on my little show over here. We have some of the people we're going to have on the show are such as Pieper, Descartes, and even Plato is going to make a stop by. And throughout this whole show, we're having a through line talking about how we as people ought to live our lives, which they will each be talking about as they show us the books that they have. So without further ado, let us have the next, our first guest come out, and that's going to be Descartes. So if you could take a look that way. So, Descartes, how are you doing on this fine day? Well, I think so, therefore I am, so I can't be doing too bad. Well, that is pretty true, but I heard from the back that you did bring your book and that you were going to tell us about how we as people ought to live our lives. So what do you have to say about that, huh? Well, it's funny that you said that because I actually did bring in my book. And it is right over here. Alright? It's on Amazon. René Descartes' Discord on Method and Meditation. Alright? You can get it on Amazon pretty cheap. It's a good read. Personally, I think I would say so myself. In the book, it actually is very interesting because I cover a lot of... I come at philosophy from a different angle than most other of the well-known philosophers do. Mostly because I come with logic and reasoning from my brain, in a sense. Alright? So in this show, in the book, I talk about how, you already probably heard my famous line, I think so, therefore I am. But in the book, I delve into how I came up with that phrase. Because the only thing I know is that I'm thinking. Alright? Everything might be a lie, but the fact that I'm thinking is the only thing that allows me to know that I exist. So even though I perceive other things that are fake, the one true thing, the one constant I have is my mind, and that it is thinking. So this is what led me through my whole thought process throughout this book, and that in life we should actually do a lot of questioning of the things around us, because we do not always necessarily know what's real and what is not. But what we do know is that our minds are real and that we do exist. Well, actually, all I know is that I exist. I don't know if you exist, to be honest, but you probably do, alright? But I do perceive you to exist, so you probably do. Throughout the book, it's a really good read. I recommend you guys buy it. It's pretty good, guys. So I go through life. I do a lot of meditating. I think I put a lot of value into meditation and thinking and getting inside your mind into the multiple layers, because that is where you can really, really find out deep things about yourself and the world around you. So that's what I came to as a conclusion. But So is there anything else you wanted to ask me? Well, that was pretty interesting information that you gave us there. But unfortunately, I don't have any more questions for you. But I will have a new guest coming right after these short messages. I'll see you guys later. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. But this time, Descartes has left the building, but we are here with my distinguished guest, Mr. Joseph Pieper. He is right over there. Well, I'm feeling pretty good today, actually. I had like an hour and a half meditation, just thinking and relaxing. A lot of leisure going on in my life, as you can tell. But how are you doing? Well, I'm doing pretty well, actually, there, Pieper. But I wanted to ask you, within the theme of our show, which I think you already know, how, as people, ought we to live our lives? What are your thoughts on this? Well, that is actually a really interesting question that I've been thinking about a lot recently, about how we as people ought to live. And it's pretty interesting, mostly because of the fact that I feel that in today's society we have so much focus on work, school, our jobs. Everything is about work, and I feel that a lot of the times we have a hard time separating leisure and work. And I think that we underestimate how valuable leisure is to the human society as a whole in terms of like mental health, physical health, and in various other attributes. It helps our society, but it's been thrown off to the wayside. And I go into great detail about this in my book, actually, which is right over here. Look at that. Leisure, the basis of culture. Alright? It's pretty cheap on Amazon. It's on sale right now. You guys might go think about buying it up. It's a really, really good read. It's a top seller actually, but you know how my work goes. So, but in terms of leisure, I feel that in my book I cover how leisure is important to humans in general, because a lot of our greatest accomplishments were people just doing things out of leisure, things that they love to do, things that they're interested in, like technology, people just tinkering around, figuring out how things work just for the fun of it, not someone in a lab getting paid to do something. Then there's art. Art is like one of the purest forms of leisure out there, because you do it on your own time when you feel like it, which is why it invokes so much feeling from us. When you see some magnificent art that rings true with your soul. Well, besides that, there's also philosophy. There's not too much money back in the day with philosophy, making money off philosophy. But it was out of pure leisure that these guys would go out, talk to people about what they thought the world was about, and it didn't make them a living, but you saw how much of an impact all these different philosophers had on society, just as if Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and even people later on like Karl Marx, all these people, even if you don't agree with them, had a great and important impact on society as a whole. And I think that leisure is pretty important, and as we should live, I would recommend everyone out there maybe take an hour or 30 minutes to do something you love to do. Play basketball, shoot some goals in a soccer thing. Do something that you like to do, and even maybe make some time for meditation and see what comes up in your mind and how you feel. I think that's going to be a really good indicator of how that's a really good way to live your life. But that's about it for me. How is it going for you? Wow, that's some really riveting stuff you got going on there, Pieper. We need to take a little time to relax and observe some of the finer things in life. I think all of our listeners would find that advice at least somewhat useful. But unfortunately, we're going to have to end it off here, and we'll be right back after these messages. I hope you guys come back. And we're back, and look, you came back. Nice. Well, unfortunately, Pieper has left the building, but we have one final guest in store for us today. And today, the final guest for the show is going to be Plato. Give a round of applause, guys. It's nice to see you again, Plato. I'm loving the toga. Not sure if we're gonna have to censor out the nipple, though. You're not cold in that at all, at least? Global warming's probably got you covered, I bet. So, since you're here, how do you think we as people ought to live our lives? Well, that's actually a really good question, in which I do tackle in my book. It's a really interesting read because instead of it coming from my perspective, like a lot of these other stories do, it's more of a record of the dialogues of a former philosopher I knew. He's pretty famous. I think you've heard of him. His name's Socrates. But me and him go way back. But I wrote down these dialogues in which he was talking to other people, and he was just going into intellectual debate, and they were going over different topics. But you can find all that information in my book right over here. Alright, Plato's Republic. Elegant and sweet and right to the point on the name. It's a great read. Any ages can get their hands on it. I'll make them smarter, I bet you. Alright? Make them more whole-rounded children. But back onto the topic on how to live in life. In the book, Socrates is confronted by many different people from different backgrounds in which in which they confront him about injustices, and how they are to live out their world. Because in that time, honor and justice are very important to them. And they think the best way to live life is to live a just life. But, so they pretty much agree that to live a just life is the best way. But they don't exactly know what is just, which is what the book is tackling. They're constantly they're all bringing their own versions of what they think a just life is and an unjust life is. And Socrates is pointing out the good and pointing out the wrong in what they're talking about. In the beginning, it focuses on what injustice is and what justice is, and how some people have a skewed mindset of when it comes to treating other people in what they think is just. Because some people will be like doing good to good people and doing bad to bad people. That is justice. But Socrates doesn't necessarily follow up with that line of thinking. So there's many instances like that where you're getting a good grasp on what many different thinking on the word justice is. And throughout the book there are other instances, but then there is stories that he tells to help prove his point. Like the man in the invisible ring, which is a test to see what a true just person will do, because in the story there's a man who finds a ring that turns him invisible, and it's more of a test of what will he truly do, and if that does that reflect on his character, which is a pretty important story. But I think by far the most important story in this book is the cave allegory that I'm sure many of you have heard. It's pretty well known. But it kind of highlights the fact that when people are stuck in what they know, and they only can visibly see what they know, they don't take outside opinions of others very well, as you can see in the story where the people who are strapped up in the cave were unable to listen to their friend who was released and saw the sun and came back to tell them they wanted no part of it. This highlights the closed-mindedness that people do have about how to live their life and their thought process throughout things. But this has been a really good book. It took me a while to write it, but I'm very proud of it. So that's about it on my book. Well, thank you for coming on the show. You've been a great guest, and we've had a pretty good episode. But I think next we're gonna, after this commercial break, we'll come up with Daniel's final monologue, that is. Well, it has come to that time again in which the show is coming to a close. I just wanted to thank the guests that we had on the show. They did a really great job talking about their books and with the point of the whole show. They gave some really thought-provoking ideas. I am saying a lot of words to continue the sentence, but I'm not really saying anything because I am walking in circles. But I will come up with a great idea of a string of words, per se, for you guys next week if you come back. Or if there's another episode. There's probably not, unless I take the class for another semester, which I think I have signed up. But I don't know why. The camera is still running. Should I put this on? I don't know. Jerry, stop looking at me like that. I feel awkward. But I do look pretty good in this suit. That is what I do know. Thank you very much. Hope you have a nice day.